I woke up early in the morning with a strange chill on my neck. At first, I thought the window had been left open or the blanket had slipped off in my sleep. But when I reached up to touch my hair, I felt emptiness. My heart skipped a beat. I jumped out of bed, ran to the mirror and screamed. Instead of the long, thick hair I had been proud of and had grown for years, there were uneven patches left on my head, as if someone had cut it with kitchen scissors in the dark. Stunned, I kept touching my head, feeling each jagged strand. My eyes filled with tears of horror and shame, and hot drops began rolling down my cheeks. I had never felt so vulnerable and humiliated. Remembering my sister's wedding, I instantly understood why this had been done. My mom had always said that I might steal the attention away, that my beauty was inappropriate next to the family's shining star, my older sister. I ran out into the hallway. There, as if nothing had happened, sat my parents. My mom was drinking tea, calmly flipping through a magazine, and my dad was reading the news on his phone. When she saw me, my mom didn't even blink. "Well, now no one will be looking at you," she said calmly, without a hint of regret. "Today is your sister's day, and you shouldn't overshadow her with your appearance." I couldn't believe they had done this while I was asleep. Like cowards, like true traitors. My father threw me a cold glance and added, "Stop crying. Hair grows back, and today's a celebration. Don't ruin everyone's mood with your drama." Every word felt like a knife. I felt my knees buckle, my throat tighten with resentment. It was like my whole world collapsed in one night. I had always been proud of my hair. It was a symbol of freedom, strength, and individuality to me. I took care of it, braided intricate styles, and wore hairstyles that drew admiration from friends and classmates. And now, all of it was destroyed in one cruel act. That's when I realized I was never truly loved in this house. I had always been a supporting character to my sister, someone in the background. Mom often said I was an accident, not as successful or needed as my sister, but I had believed that one day I would earn their recognition. That night proved I never would. I slowly returned to my room, shut the door, and sank to the floor. I kept seeing the same images. My long hair on the floor, my mother's satisfied face, my father's indifferent gaze. I felt something ignite inside me, an angry flame, a fire of betrayal, and the will to prove they couldn't break me. I sat in silence, listening to the laughter of guests outside, and the sounds of wedding preparations. The whole house felt joyful, except me. But deep inside, a plan was beginning to form. The house was in wedding chaos. Guests arrived one after another, bringing laughter, chatter, and the scent of fresh flowers and perfume. Everyone was enchanted by her look, her skin, her dress. It was like I didn't even exist. I hid in my room, locked from the inside. I couldn't look in the mirror. The sight of my brutally chopped hair made me nauseous. I heard my mom whispering to someone outside my door. "Good thing we did it in time, or she would have distracted everyone with that hair again. Why does she need that beauty? Let her sit in the corner." With every word, I felt my heart hardening. I used to hope they would change, that my mom would be proud of me, that my dad would notice how hard I tried. But today, on this loud and joyful day for everyone else, my last illusions were gone. When the photo shoot started, they made me come out. My mom said sternly, "Stand in the back, don't lift your head and smile." I felt like an empty prop, a useless piece in the frame. People looked at me with surprise and pity. Some even snickered behind their hands. I wanted to disappear into the ground. My sister glowed like a real princess. Everyone hovered around her, admiring her every move. My mom ran up every 5 minutes to adjust her dress or hair. Dad stood proudly beside her. Their perfect family portrait was completed by me, the gray blotch. I tried to breathe slowly, so I wouldn't break down crying in front of everyone. Something inside me was cracking, but instead of tears, I felt a cold resolve. I realized if I stayed silent and swallowed this humiliation, it would never end. They would keep breaking me, using me as a silent background for someone else's joy. I went back to my room, shut the door, and sat on the bed. With every second, one thought grew stronger. I won't let them treat me like this ever again. That's when the first draft of a plan formed in my mind. There was an old wardrobe in the room where I kept school notebooks, letters, and little things that only mattered to me. At the bottom of the drawer was an old phone. I pulled it out, wiped off the dust, and checked. It still worked. I immediately thought of my uncle. He was my mom's brother and the only person in the family who ever told me, "You deserve more." My uncle always treated me kindly, supported me when my mom put me down. In recent years, he'd stopped visiting often. He couldn't stand my parents' behavior. But I still had his number. I began writing a long message. My fingers trembled, and my heart pounded so loudly I felt like the whole house could hear it. I told him everything. How I'd been humiliated since childhood, how I wasn't allowed to make friends, how I was constantly told I didn't belong. I described how they cut my hair while I slept just to humiliate me and make me invisible at my sister's wedding. With each word, I felt freer. All the pain I had bottled up for years was finally pouring out. I wasn't just complaining. I was screaming from within, spilling out all the sorrow I had kept inside. I ended the message with, "If you ever truly loved me as your niece, please help me. I can't stay here anymore." I hit send and set the phone on my lap. At first, I was scared. I worried he might ignore it, think I was exaggerating. But deep inside, a tiny spark of hope flickered. I sat still, barely breathing. And in that moment, I felt a strange peace. I knew I had finally started to fight back. No matter what the outcome would be, at least I wasn't silent anymore. A few minutes later, the phone vibrated. With shaking hands, I opened the message. It was short. "I'm coming. Hang in there." Those 2 words lit a real fire inside me. I knew it had begun. The noise of the wedding kept growing louder. The guests were already settling at the tables. The clinking of glasses, laughter, and music filled the air. My mom and my sister were making the final preparations. Everything looked like it was a perfect day. But inside me a storm was building. I knew my uncle was already on his way. I sat in my room, dressed in the same old dress I was told to wear so I wouldn't stand out. My hair was tied into a small, messy ponytail, with uneven strands sticking out. There was a knock at the door. "Are you coming or what?" My mom shouted irritably. "Come help serve drinks to the guests." I took a deep breath, wiped away my tears, and went to the hall. People looked at me with surprise and pity. Some whispered, "Poor girl." But no one dared say anything out loud. Then there was a loud sound, the front door opening. My uncle walked confidently into the room. He was tall, with sharp features and always commanded respect. This time he wasn't smiling. His gaze was cold as ice. He looked at me, then at my parents. The room fell silent, and even the music seemed to dim for a second. "I want all the guests to hear this," he said loudly and clearly, like a commander. "Today is a wedding, a celebration. But behind this celebration is a truth you all need to know." Everyone stopped chewing. Someone dropped a glass. Someone froze with a fork halfway to their mouth. My uncle continued. "The parents of this girl cut her hair off in the middle of the night while she was sleeping. Not because she wanted a change, but because her mother was afraid her daughter would look more beautiful than her sister. This isn't the first time. For years she's been humiliated, broken down, and forbidden from being herself." Guests began whispering to each other. My mom tried to stand up, but my uncle made a sharp gesture with his hand. "Sit," he said firmly. "You need to hear how cruelty can hide behind the mask of a perfect family." I stood nearby, feeling fear and pride blend inside me. It felt like someone had finally spoken my pain out loud. My father turned pale and started mumbling, "That's not true. She's exaggerating." But my uncle cut him off. "I have her message. I saw it with my own eyes." He held up his phone and showed the message I had sent. Several guests immediately left the room. Others looked at my parents with disgust. My mom covered her face with her hands. My sister stood frozen, unsure where to go. Her perfect day was falling apart right in front of her. No one smiled anymore. The congratulations stopped. In their place were judging stares and heavy silence. After my uncle finished speaking, the atmosphere in the house changed instantly. Relatives began turning away from my parents. Guests whispered among themselves, discussing what they had just heard. The joyful mood was gone, replaced by tension and discomfort. My mom and dad tried to explain themselves, but no one listened anymore. My uncle came over to me, put a strong arm around my shoulders and said, "Let's go. You don't have to stay in this house any longer." I looked at my mom. Her eyes were filled with rage and fear. I realized I was seeing her defeated for the first time in my life. My father stood with his head down. His face was gray and lifeless. I walked out of the house with my uncle, feeling tears roll down my cheeks. But they weren't tears of fear or pain. They were tears of freedom. Outside, my uncle's car was waiting. He helped me in, gently placing his hand on my back like someone protecting a child. As we pulled away, I looked out the window and watched the house where I had lived my whole life grow smaller and smaller. With it, the hurt, the yelling, the rules, and the mockery all faded. I felt something new slowly rise inside me. A sense of freedom and self-worth. My uncle took me to his home. There, his wife, warm and caring, greeted me with a hug deeper and more sincere than I had ever received from anyone in my own family. They prepared a room just for me, with a soft bed and a mirror I no longer felt like spitting at. In the days that followed, I began to adjust to a new rhythm of life. I started seeing a therapist. My uncle paid for sessions to help me rebuild my self-esteem. I began growing my hair back. Every inch of new strands felt like a victory. Eventually, I enrolled in school, made new friends, became open and strong. I realized that true beauty isn't in the length of your hair or the clothes you wear. It's in your ability to rise after being broken, to refuse to let others destroy you. My parents lost the respect of our family. Their reputation was shattered. My sister grew distant from them, and my mom and dad were left alone in their perfect house. Revenge wasn't about humiliating them. It was about proving to myself, and to the world, that I was stronger than they ever imagined. Now when I look in the mirror, I no longer see a frightened girl. I see a grown, free woman who is no longer afraid to be herself.